We are continuing to follow the latest regarding a deadly shooting that involved a CBP agent and also a man in Minneapolis. This comes after several protesters took to the street to push back against those immigration operations. I want to bring us to this, some of the footage that has been circulating around social media, and it features an eyewitness video. Now, our team at Fox 9 in Minneapolis saying this, that federal Border Patrol agents fatally shot a Minneapolis man, 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Pretti, Saturday morning. This is the third shooting involving federal agents this year, including the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent back on January 7th. This particular shooting happened around 9 a.m. on Saturday near 26th Street West and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. Federal authorities say Pretti was armed. However, Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino did not state if the man pulled a gun or where the gun was when he was shot by Border Patrol. Pretti had a legal permit to carry, is a U.S. citizen, and lives in Minneapolis, according to Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara. Want to continue on as to what's going to happen going forward and really the standard protocols regarding this situation. So bringing now into the conversation, we're going to have Bobby McDonald. He is a retired supervisory Secret Service agent and also assistant professor of practice at the University of New Haven. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be back with you.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you back. Terrible circumstances again, though, however. So you just saw the shooting. There's several vantage points, and we're still working to get some more video. That investigation is ongoing. But based on what we've seen so far, and we've seen that this person was surrounded by several officers, several agents in this situation. So what is the standard practice when someone is surrounded by a lot of officers in regards to using lethal force?
Well, there's two aspects of this that I think we need to look at. One is that the officers were working in tandem with each other to apprehend or interview or whatever they were doing with this individual prior to the shooting. They're working in numbers. They're working to make sure that the area is safe and that they are safe. We move into the aspect of when that gun was detected and then how that message got out to all those officers and what was the perceived threat. Did he pull the gun? I'm not sure that any of the angles really show that right now. I'm not sure that all of the angles that we've seen are going to show everything at this point. So there's still a lot of information here that we don't know and that we need to find out to see if the officers here followed their use of force paradigm as required by their agency that they're employed by.
So you mentioned something within that last answer that kind of segues to this next question that I have, which is how do agencies assess whether a suspect is a quote imminent threat when a weapon is not visibly displayed?
Excellent question, and I'm not sure I can give you a very good answer on that. We have to rely here on what the officers were feeling at the time and seeing at the time. There's really probably a textbook definition for that agency, but real time when things are happening, chaos is going on, things don't always go according to script, unfortunately. So for some reason in this instance, the officers felt threatened or an officer felt threatened and verbalized the fact that that gun was there. I think the video shows one of the officers in a gray jacket pulling that gun away from the situation. And then I think the shot rings out. So that's a little bit of a concern that if the gun was taken away from the individual, sure, there could possibly be other weapons on him and things of that nature, but we're going to have to pick this apart frame by frame by frame and actually talk to the officers, talk to witnesses, and get the real story as to what happened here. An investigation is a reconstruction of the past. So from the point of that shooting, we've got to work backwards to see what happened and make sure that everybody acted appropriately.
I want to turn now to the broader aspect of this because, as you know, protests have continued in Minneapolis, in several cities across the country as well. Taking a look here at some of the footage from just last night after that shooting happened. So you see a lot of people here out to the streets. And of course, we have federal agents that are present at several of these locations. So when we talk about an escalating situation, specifically when it comes to these protests, I mean, they can be very tense. There's a lot that goes on. Sometimes they can be a bit chaotic. So when federal officers are using already, these methods of force that are non-lethal, including, batons, chemical agents sometimes, how does that escalation work when it comes to that proper protocol again? How do we know when it is appropriate to escalate the situation and it turns into something that's lethal?
Exactly. That's the problem we've got here is that there's a very fine line between non-lethal actions and lethal actions. Certainly, things can happen with those various assets and tools that they're going to be utilizing. Supervisors that are on the ground here need to be the individuals who are assessing the situation. We need to make sure that we go over and above than from a quick reaction. We need to go over and above to make sure that the actions of the police officers are doing the right thing. I'm not a politician or a political scientist, but as I've mentioned with your outlet on numerous times when we're talking about gun situations, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get uh, law enforcement in Minnesota to sit down and talk to each other about how to cooperate? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get politicians from both sides of the aisle to sit down and talk about how we can take the temperature down here, get Minnesota safe again, figure out a way for the federal agencies to be able to do what they need to do, and figure out for people how to protest peacefully and not raise things to a level where these things are going to happen. It's not a very good situation out there right now.
Speaking of hearing from politicians on both sides of the aisle, I want to turn now to some social media posts that we have. The first one is going to be from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He says this: I just spoke with the White House after another horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it. This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota now. And then we have a social media post from Vice President J.D. Vance. He says this level of engineered chaos is unique to Minneapolis. It is the direct consequence of far left agitators working with local authorities. So we have two very different viewpoints as to what's happening on the ground. And we know that the federal administration, the Trump administration versus local and state leaders there in Minnesota, they are at an impasse right now when it comes to how to move forward. Minnesota officials are wanting these ICE agents out. The Trump administration is saying they have to be there to conduct their business. So, Bobby, how do these conflicts normally get resolved? Have we seen instances like this in the past that we can kind of look to see how this will play out going forward?
Well, I think one of the problems that we have right now, again, with social media, with 24-hour news, is that people make comments at the very beginning of a situation that may or may not be true. And once those comments are made, they are interpreted by the people that are listening. And sometimes those can inflame the way people react. So I think what we need to do is both sides of the aisle to not send information, as we say, downrange, whether it was with that young child the other day or with the shooting yesterday. We have to let these things play out. And I understand it's a very volatile topic right now. I understand that, a news conference has to happen pretty quick and we need to get information out. I'm fully aware of that. But when we send information downrange from both sides of the aisle that's not true or has the talking points or various verbiage in it that gets people riled up, it's not very good to bring the temperature down to the situation. People are getting hurt. It's cold out there where people are standing for hours. I understand that their beliefs are tried and hard true, and they want to protest in a peaceful fashion. Officers need to react properly and make sure that they're following the paradigm, and protesters need to make sure that peaceful protests take place. Not mostly peaceful protests, but peaceful protests.
And that's something that we are hearing from officials, leaders in Minneapolis and Minnesota, that the protests can continue, but they're trying to make sure that they don't turn deadly like how we have seen. This on the screen is a live look at the actual shooting scene. It does seem to be frozen at this moment, but you can see that people are still out there. There's a memorial growing for Alex Pretti, who was the man who was shot by those agents yesterday morning. Bobby, when we talk about the investigation going forward, what kind of independent oversight mechanisms are typically triggered when we talk about a federal agent involved shooting?
Well, I'd like to see an independent agency be brought in here to investigate this. We've heard words back and forth throughout this shooting and the shooting of a couple of weeks ago that there was lack of cooperation and there is no investigation or the investigation starting. We've got to have somebody come in who does not have an interest or a viable interest in the case or the prosecution to come in, look at what happened here, look at the tapes, look at the CCTV tapes that are hopefully around on that corner or that area of the street. talk to witnesses, make sure that we sift out what information is accurate, what information is not accurate, and then make sure again that both the victim's family is taken care of. We can't forget that there's a victim here who lost his life, and his family is feeling pressure and issues now. And the officer who shot the gun, he's going to be having some troubles today too. I'm sure he's on administrative leave. And look, no federal officer goes to work every day hoping to pull their gun and shoot. That's just not the way it is. So I know that some of the verbiage and vitriol tends to criminalize the ICE officers. And if there's criminal charges that need to be brought, then so be it. But we've all got to get together and start talking about this because we don't seem to be moving in a very good direction. And if this is now going to move to other cities, it's going to be a long couple of weeks.
And we've been talking about this throughout the entire discussion, Bobby, but my final question really is what are, in your opinion, some of the lessons that could be learned from yesterday? What can be taken from that incident to make sure that that does not happen again going forward?
Well, officers have to be diligent to make sure that they're following the paradigm of their agency's use of force model. They've got to make sure and remake sure that they're following it properly. Look, it's very easy for us to Monday morning quarterback here and not understand what that officer or those officers felt. And they've been feeling it for days going on there, working hard, doing what they've been tasked to do, but getting a lot of confrontations and other pushback from the community, which doesn't come very well with the people from above who are giving some indications of blessing those pushings back. So it'll be interesting to see how we go forward. I'd love to see somebody stand up, as I said to you earlier, and say, hey, let's knock this off. Let's get a box of donuts and a box of coffee and go sit in a room and figure this out so that we don't have to be talking about these issues of loss of life or criminal charges or whatever in that city. They've had a rough couple of years, starting with George Floyd and now moving into now, and they've got to get themselves back on the track to move forward in a very safe and productive fashion.
Bobby McDonald, retired supervisory Secret Service agent, also assistant professor of practice at the University of New Haven. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here at Live Now from Fox. You take
Thank
care.
you so much. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Of course. Thank you, Bobby.